stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
2016, year of the snake. It's time for a change in the White House, y'all. Bring it.
Suzzanne Monken. How you doing, y'all? Click the share button. Let folks know we are live. There is no other way. Facebook doesn't care. So please click the share. Facebook doesn't care. So please click the share. Sing the song on the run. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Make America great again. Good to see you all. Good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. There's Deidre. Good to see you. Ooh, I do like those things. There we go. Hi, Debbie, how's it going? Good to see you. Tracy, how's it going? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff tonight, you guys. So click the share button. Let folks know we're live. The news is doing that thing. And you know that it does. It talks about stuff that isn't real. It ignores stuff that is real. We're going to talk about those things. Thank you for sharing. Chris has shared this link, fightback.law. This is the link that you can continue to share. You can continue to help raise funds for the Kyle Rittenhouse defense. We want to continue to make sure that that young man has a sound and complete defense, and we follow through on that process as patriots to support him. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are watching the one and only Trump Talk US live in DC with Suzzanne Monk. I am Suzzanne Monk. We are 8 minutes away. 8 minutes away from our nation's beautiful, beautiful capital. We are about 15 minutes away from the president's fantastic, beautiful, wonderful White House. So, and we got a chance to actually see the president this weekend. Saturday was out with a group of wonderful patriots, and we try to always support the president whenever we can. How's it going, Paul? Whenever we can at his local events, golf course. When he goes golfing, folks try to be there to, say something, wave a flag, be positive to the president. He had an event at Trump International here in DC, so we had a group of patriots there to wave flags. A few protesters, but a lot of positive people. A lot of people are just in from out of town. Literally, visiting DC, stopped to sit and see the president go by. So we got to see his motorcade come in and go out, although we're a little farther away from where he came out. But Christy was there. Christy Fegan, my Feegs, was there with us. We had a lot of fun. Spent the day with some great patriots. We actually got written up by the press pool, okay? Because the press pool, they follow the president around. They just follow him around. That's what they do. They report on everything the president does. And so when the president ends up someplace, that an event or whatever, where they're not, supposed to be in, they're not following him in the event. They go have lunch. They take a break, and then they come back when he's ready to leave. So they pick him back up. You know what I'm saying? So when the press was coming back to Trump International to get ready to leave, follow the president to his Nevada event that he was doing later in the day, they were walking by, and I said, I had my bullhorn, my bossy Bessie, my trusty battle axe, me, always welcoming and friendly. I said, welcome back, press corps. We appreciate all you honest. Remember to tell the truth. Make sure you tell the truth about our president. We appreciate you honest ones. You know who you are. And then this one cute camera woman, she kind of smiled. I'm like you, ma'am, the one with the smile. I bet you're an honest one. I can tell with that smile. And she just smiled and she took a picture and realized that she shouldn't be talking to us ne'er-do-well supporters and protesters or whatnot. But they wrote that up in the press corps report of the San Francisco Daily Chronicle. Their daily press corps report for Saturday does include a quote. They don't attribute it to me because they don't know who I am. But they say the Trump supporters welcomed us back, told us to tell the truth, and said, we appreciate you honest ones. You know who you are. And we do. All of those things are totally true. We totally do appreciate the press that are the honest ones that are telling the truth. And I tell you that story today. Because I want to talk about how the media is not telling the truth. Not telling the truth yet again. And in this interesting method of lying by omission. So, as you know, each and every day when I do a little research for this show, before I go on, I go into my Google search. Now, folks, if I'm actually looking for something, I use Bing, I use other sites. Trust me. I use Google specifically so that I can be on the pulse of what the media, the liberal media, is allowing to be consumed. So I'll go on, okay, go on my little phone here, and I go on the Google, and I type in the word news. I just type in news. Then I click a space so that newsbusters.org doesn't come up automatically, and then it doesn't know what I'm doing. And I check, okay? So then the news comes up, and it says Google News, Fox News. I could click in any one of these news sites, but I don't do that because what I'm trying to do is get on the pulse. I'm trying to figure out what the search engine mind is trying to feed people. So I click the news tab of the news. This is what I do every day when I'm getting ready for the show. News tab of the news. Now, I just want to read to you a little bit. This is the first page. So these are the news stories, the most important news stories. These are the news. This is the news of the news. This is the news. What the news wants you to think of as news. First page. Coronavirus story. Wildfires. They're talking about climate change. The Bob Woodward interview. Coronavirus story. Oh, the NFL. Let's go to the next page. Let's go. Coronavirus story. Life on Venus. I think that's an odd thing to. Okay, so Carol Moran quitting her news job. She's a journalist, obviously quitting. Coronavirus. More football. Look, the football. Everybody's like, oh, the football is doing great. Record-setting performances in the football. What records? The most cardboard cutout patrons? This is the stupidest thing. How can there be a record? How can you set a record when you have no fans in the stands? What record are you setting? Record setting. It's so ridiculous. Coronavirus. Let's see. Oh, a worker dies after falling Orlando Star. Now, see, what's interesting is that yesterday, in case you didn't know, yesterday, two police officers were ambushed and shot in LA. Did you know that? Were you aware of that? That two police officers are fighting for their lives were shot in LA just yesterday. They're in the hospital right now. Both the president and candidate Joe Biden have mentioned it on the press trail. Interestingly, no. Oh, look, East Idaho Credit Union concludes successful food drive. That's an important news story. Less important, I think, of course, than two officers being ambushed and nearly killed in a shootout in LA, with both the president and his opponent speaking about it in their campaign. All right, well, we're already on page 4 of the news. Already poor. Oh, Karen, that sounds so good. Page 4. I have that page 4. Yeah, exactly, Christy. Fear, fear, and more fear. Christy, this is what Christy says. Fear, fear, and more fear. Oh, and don't think we're yourself. We'll do that for you. That's correct. That's correct. Well, we'll go on. We're only on page 4. You're only on page 4. College students going back to school are driving the coronavirus scare. So more coronavirus. Race, the power of an illusion. Ooh, Berkeley News. They want to talk about race. We still haven't talked about officers getting shot based on a illusion of a racial movement, which is actually a Marxist movement called BLM, which is actually inciting people to violence against police. We're not talking about that. Page 6 now. We're up to page 6. Oh, well, we're finally talking about the wildfires, you guys. 6 pages in, we're talking about the wildfires. Okay? 6 pages in. The first headline in the news tab about the wildfires. Would you like to hear what this says? West Coast wildfire smoke reaches Chicago, creating hazy sky. Let me read that headline again for you guys. West Coast wildfire smoke reaches Chicago, creating hazy sky. Right. Karen, let me just put this up. Why don't they want to talk about the actual wildfires? Why are they only talking about the smoke from the wildfires reaching all the way to Chicago? Oh, could it be because it's mostly arson? Interesting. Well, so I thought about that. I thought to myself, what about self? What if let's see if we can find some news. So we do some scroll. You didn't see, Karen didn't know any haze. Karen did not notice any haze. Fake news. To be fair, Chicago sometimes has its own damn haze. I don't know what people are talking about. Like, Chicago doesn't need any help making a haze, okay? Stupid. It's just stupid. So, I'm just going to put fires, arson. Let's see what comes up with that. Arson. Because then, once you realize they're not going to give you the news, now, you start looking for stuff. Because I know for a fact that, in fact, what has been going on? Well, we've had 2 officers ambushed in LA. We have protests in front of their hospital today. We have ongoing protests around the country. We have wildfires raging through Oregon, California, etc. We're gonna look up this in a minute. I'm gonna pull this article up, but I'm gonna try to make a point. So I look up fires, arson, because I want to find out, did they arrest somebody? When I looked that up, what comes up is an article. Man arrested twice from OregonLive.com. Man arrested twice in 12-hour span for starting fires near I-205. Okay. Same man. This was posted 10 hours ago in the Oregonian. A man was arrested on Sunday for intentionally setting a brush fire near the Interstate 205 in Portland. Then, just hours after he was released, he was taken into custody again for lighting 6 more fires. What did I just tell you? For lighting 6 more fires, according to Portland police. Around 4:35 p.m., officers were sent to help Portland Fire Rescue with a small blaze burning in a section of grass along the freeway. The fire was quickly put out. No one was injured. About an hour later, a witness flagged down officers and told them that a man in a nearby tent had lit the fire. Domingo Lopez Jr., 45, was taken into custody and admitted to setting the fire. Police said in a statement he was found with a plastic bottle with a burnt wick attached. He was found with a plastic bottle with a burnt wick attached. Now, you guys just put those facts together. A plastic bottle with a burnt wick. What wicks into a plastic bottle? Oh, well, that's how you make it. What would be in the bottle? An accelerant. It's an intentionally started fire. Let's read a little more. He was booked into the Multnomah County Detention Center on charges of reckless burning and disorderly conduct. What was released around 3:30 a.m. Monday. So, 4:35 p.m. went to the fire. Probably arrested this guy about an hour later, 5:35. So they go through booking. The guy sits in. They release him. Sunday. Okay. Within hours of his release, around 3:30 a.m. Monday, officers were called to another report of fire in the same general area of Interstate 205. They found several small places, and firefighters quickly put out several of them while bystanders from the community taking care of the rest. No one was injured and no structures were damaged. Lopez was found walking on the shoulder of the freeway a short time later and arrested. He was taken to a Louisville hospital for mental health evaluation. Despite at least of the 3 arrests for arson around the state in recent weeks, local police have roundly rejected. Now, this is what I find fascinating. Despite at least 3 other arrests for arson around the state in recent weeks, local police departments and the FBI have roundly rejected and debunked rumors of widespread arson in relation to the massive wildfires. All right, well, let's read a little bit more. Authorities arrest 4 in connection with wildfires. 4 have been arrested on suspicion of arson in West Coast areas already under siege. Now, the officers are saying, what I was told in that last article, cops are saying it's not really arson. I mean, we've arrested some people for arson, but they're not the fires are the wildfires. They're not, their fires aren't really doing any damage. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Let's find out. The wildfires continue to rage across 3 states. Police investigated several separate incidents near existing wildfires. 2 men in Washington state, 1 man in Oregon, and 1 woman in California are facing charges, according to the Daily Wire. These are 4 people right now, according to the Daily Wire. The latest report suggests that at least 20 people have died in California, 8 in Oregon, and 1 in Washington state, as firefighters struggle to contain the already deadly fires. A criminal investigation was opened into the cause of the Alameda fire, calling the circumstances around the fire to be suspicious. That fire burned, let me see, I scroll back, it burned, 20 different homes. So there's several cases. Now, here's the thing. We've looked at some of these people. The people that are involved, we've looked them up. They actually do have Antifa connections. But what does NBC News say? As wildfires rage, false Antifa rumors spur pleas from police. And this is 3 days ago. So 3 days ago, they're like, oh, please stop saying it's arson from Antifa. You're calling in with all these tips, and it's overwhelming us. Let's read what they were saying. Yes, police and local officials on the West Coast are battling multiple raging fires. They're also fighting a wave of misinformation from false rumors spread in the neighborhood Facebook groups and on far-right websites that Antifa activists were setting the blazes. The false rumors. The sheriffs in Jackson County, Oregon, and Mason County, Washington posted similar warnings. What's the warning? Rumors spread like wildfire, and 911 dispatchers and professional staff are being overwhelmed with requests for information and inquiries on an untrue rumor that 6 Antifa members have been arrested for setting fires in Douglas County, Oregon. Okay, but you did then arrest other individuals. And 4 individuals we know have been arrested. Additional arrests possible. At this point, we don't even know. So this is what I find very interesting. They want to call it a cesspool of information. Oh, you guys are misinforming. But in reality, what we see is arson charges being filed in the Almeida fire. Charges being filed. Oregon man lit separate blaze while Almeida fire burned, sheriff says. The media doesn't know what to do with themselves. But what they're trying to do is make sure that the story you get is constantly, climate change made them do it. That the story you get is constantly tainted from having the truth. So they have to write opinion stories and pre-opinion stories. This is what I wanted you to notice in this particular news topic that we're seeing with these wildfires. 3 days ago, 4 days ago, they were all writing all these stories. It's not arson, it's not arson, it's not arson. Well, a day ago, they wrote an article and they arrested at least 4 people in 3 different states. So, there's an interesting phenomenon going on where somewhere between the media, the local Democrat leadership government in these very blue pockets that are destroying themselves, and the Democrat narrative machine, between these things, we're actually putting a lot of people's lives at risk. For the law enforcement to come out in Oregon, in Washington State, in California, and to suggest, we're getting too many tips. Please stop reporting tips. Please stop giving us information. Please stop calling us and finding out if we know anything about arson. Well, I understand. They don't want people calling and asking questions. They could have just said, look, don't call and ask about it. But to come out and say it's deliberately misinformation and it's based on these 6 folks that were arrested, they weren't really arrested. Okay, well, 1 is already been charged, not just arrested, charged. So you have to start understanding that the media is manipulating the story. The media is manipulating what gets out, and it's in conjunction, unfortunately, with these Democrat narrative makers, with Democrat leadership, with Democrat lawmakers, and unfortunately, and this is the case, and many of my friends who have dealt with law enforcement in blue cities will say this as well. Unfortunately, sometimes Democrat law enforcement and Democrat law enforcement leadership, sometimes the sheriff, sometimes the chief of police is right in that Democrat mayor's or Democrat governor's or Democrat county board's back pocket. So they're more than willing to continue that narrative. We have gotten to such a dangerous point in narrative speak at this point. We have gotten to where creating the narrative is more important than putting people, than people's lives. And we've seen that both true in the narrative behind the Black Lives Matter protests. We're going to talk about that next, but I'm going to keep talking a little bit about the narrative we're seeing. Hey, Virginia, how's it going? With these wildfires, the narrative we're seeing it being this climate change situation. Oh, it's climate change. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Well, we're finding out there's actually a lot of arson. Oh, no, it's not arson. All right. Well, by telling people it isn't, when we have evidence and arrests to show that, in fact, there's a great deal of arson going on. What in a normal world, not in bizarro, upside-down narrative speak world, where the Democrats and the left are trying to control our minds so that they can impose a new world order. Okay. Not in that world, but in a normal world. Yes, it was peaceful arson. Exactly, Javier. I'm going to put this up because it's funny. It was peaceful arson. Exactly. In a normal world, if somebody was going around, if wildfires had resulted from 4 or 5 attempted and intentional acts of arson, the law enforcement will be coming out and saying, look, we're looking for this kind of person. We're looking for anybody who has any evidence, any video, any, hey, Francis, how's it going? Any witness testimony, any license plates or identifying information of individuals who may be setting these fires. There seems to be a pattern throughout the states of folks setting fires We're very concerned that there might be a pattern. There's been threats to set a pattern of fires. So we're going to follow up on that. Please, if you see something, say something. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Please keep an eye out. That is what would happen in a normal, not bizarre world, not helter-skelter, the left trying to destroy the country so that it can take over, right? In the helter-skelter, bizarre world reality, what instead happens, instead of law enforcement, instead of governors and mayor coming out and saying, hey, we have a problem, we need to be concerned, we need to be careful. We have individuals who are behaving dangerously during a dry season, So I want, if you see anything, report it. Instead of doing that, what we see them doing is coming out and refuting information that then comes out to be true. Saying, no, it's not arson. These are just it's climate change. Climate change is making the fires. Oh, well, we just arrested those 4 people for arson, setting the fires in that exact area. In fact, one of the fires, specifically one of the named fires, is now charges are being filed on an individual who set that fire. To be fair, if you look back on many of these wildfires in California, Oregon, West Coast wildfires, what you would find a lot of them have been arson or human set. They are not wildfires, okay, in the sense that they are not in any way human created. They're either almost to a fault, started intentionally. Yes, thank you, Virginia. Saying Virginia's been following this. She knows what I'm talking about. This is what I'm saying. They've been started intentionally, or they have been started by someone who has been careless out in the wild. But a lot leaning towards the first thing lately. And so there's been arrests. We've been arrests. We know that the fires are being started intentionally, at least some of them. Okay. Now, for some climatologists, not bad, comes on my feed and starts to blow up the comments with some bullshit. Let me just say, I understand, okay, that if the climate is bad, okay, and it's dry and it's not, and the trees aren't getting enough moisture, they're easier to burn. I get that. But you know what? One, if you didn't have your little leftist friends go out and set the fires on purpose to create chaos, they wouldn't be as likely to burn. And 2, if you engaged in proper forest management, as my president has told you time and time again, he has suggested we need to engage in proper forest management in this country. Do they listen? Does anybody listen? Is anybody paying attention? Anybody care? Forest management, anything? Nothing? Bueller? So, yes, if you continue to let dead wood build up in your forests, right? If you don't log and even allow people, lumber guys, to come in and remove the dead wood and use that wood, sell that wood. If you don't have anybody cleaning that up, it does in fact pile and rot. This idea that nature is really awesome and cool all by itself, which it is. Look, nature is beautiful. It's also dangerous. It's also stinky. There's rot. There's bugs. There's decay. There's disease. There's fires. There's tornadoes. Nature isn't as concerned about the fires as we are. We humans have the problem with the fires because we have put our stuff there. We put our houses, we put our homes, we put things of value. That being said, we humans are the ones starting a lot of the fires. So between those two things, we should be better stewards. We should be better stewards of the land. And in fact, when we used to live in the forest, when we used to live off the land more, we certainly used those resources extremely differently. For example, over here in the East Coast, Maryland, Virginia, the district area, we have so many forests and so many trees to drive around. You drive in and out of the city anywhere. There's trees, lots of trees, right? You can visualize our founding fathers and mothers as they were fighting for our liberty, as though they were settling this land. Here they are in these beautiful forests, chopping wood, building cabins. You can visualize all of that, right? In some places, actually, go see the stuff that they built. We're not chopping down the wood anymore, okay? But I can tell you, if we were chopping down the wood, all these forests would have no dead wood in this whole area because we don't even have enough forest to keep everybody's house stocked with wood. We would have to figure out how to get wood from somewhere else. We'd start cutting down all our damn trees. So, part of how we are engaging nature is totally different now in a modern society. We're not using nature for our everyday resources. The average person isn't going out into the forest and getting wood that they use to cook and eat with. Cook and heat their homes and heat water, all of that. So, we're seeing things very, very differently. As we become more modern, as the world becomes more modern, we do need to engage in more management of our resources. One, because it becomes more dangerous to see those resources damaged in a natural phenomenon of fire or such. But two, because it becomes more dangerous for individuals to cause a fire, for human intervention to cause the problems and cause damage to nature. Not to mention the third, and I think people just don't pay attention to this. And it's unfortunate that people don't pay attention to this. I grew up in the desert, so I know exactly what we're talking about. I know exactly what we're saying, okay? When you move a lot of people into an area in the desert where there's very dry, which, by the way, Oregon, as much as they have trees up there, it is a arid, elevated climate. So yes, they have pines and stuff, but they also have, very dry pine trees. It's like desert mountains, not the deciduous forests we have over here on the East Coast with all these beautiful leafy trees, etc. No. Much drier. When you move a lot of people in there and they start using and consuming that water, the water table drops. We move businesses, factories, and such that move water in there, the water table drops even further. You allow, say, the Saudis or the Chinese to buy up a bunch of land and grow hay out there in the middle of the desert. They use a lot of water to grow that hay. The water table drops a little further. So you're actually sucking water out of these areas, making them more dry over time. Now, if we don't manage that, if we don't manage the effects of human beings, we're going to get fires. It's not climate change. It's human change. Humans have changed how we interact with the forest. And so we should engage how we act with the forest. We're not doing that. What's actually happening is the left is going out setting fires. So between the two of it, and yes, Virginia, you're totally right. If you pull up a map where the fires are, it's quite obvious it's not Mother Earth being angry. Yes, Mother Earth didn't start these fires. Okay? In fact, Mother Earth would like it if we would actually get in there into the forest, clean up some of this dead wood, stop some of these major fires, and certainly stop arsonists from going in there and starting the fires, right? So we scrolled through the news. We didn't find any of this. We had to go look it up. We did not also find police shut. We had to also look that fact up. We had to, let me see. Oh, that's great. Chris says, Paul Smith College here in Northern New York teaches forest management. Trump knows of this college. He should send representatives to the 3 states out west. They need help. You're absolutely right, Chris. They seriously need some kind of professional help out there to manage that situation. So now, we know the arsons that these fires are being affected by arson, if not caused entirely by arson. We know that they're suppressing the story. Facebook has put out that they're going to start deleting pages. They're going to start blocking posts that put out false, quote, false information about the fires being started by the left, but in fact, that's what actually happened. So apparently, if you put out real information, you will get blocked. That's what's going to happen to you in Facebook. I don't know what to tell you. That's just the situation at hand. Here it is. Now, the other story that they're not telling you about, you guys, are 2 officers ambushed in LA, shot. Female officer, I believe she's in her 30s. The male officer, 24. She was shot in the jaw. She rendered critical aid to her colleague who was also shot, called for 911 help. It's kind of sad. How's it going, Nick? It's kind of a sad. It's kind of a tragic story, actually. And one of the real tragedies of it is she couldn't really talk because she'd been shot in the jaw. So if you listen to the 911 call, you're gonna hear the unfortunate reality that she is trying to make sure that her other officer gets help while being unable to talk because of her injured jaw. Now, why are these two cops shot? And we're going to talk about what protests are doing next and what that means ultimately, and I think why we should keep talking about it. But why were these two cops shot? Well, I can tell you why. Because for uh, we've seen for several months now, since the new rise of the current BLM fury, since George Floyd, before it was obviously the Ferguson situation, which I believe is Mike Brown. It's been other previous cycles. Obviously, that was 4 years ago. We had the Mike Brown situation, several others. It ended in up to 5 Dallas officers being shot, several other officers being shot. I live in Ward 8, Burgie. I live in Ward 8. Sometimes people pop in and they ask you questions. They say, you're in D.C., and I say, yes, I'm in D.C. I live in Ward 8, right near the big chair. So that should tell you where I live. Now, what we're seeing is, we have to blame the media. Nick, you're 100% correct. We have to blame the media, and we have to blame an intentional narrative. And I'm going to talk about this for a minute because this is really important to our community here in D.C. It's important to every urban community everywhere. So every 4 years in an election, you have an organization called Black Lives Matter that decides now it's time to get really upset about every single thing the cops do. And how they decide that they're going to get upset is they encourage people to protest and come out, but they don't. And we don't know fully because we'd have to understand the depths of the organization, but they certainly aren't discouraging the folks who are coming out, who are rioting and looting, etc. And every cycle, every time we go through the same conversation. Oh, well, they have peaceful protests. The peaceful protests are during the day, right? And then at night, the peaceful protesters go home, right? They think they've made the point, or this is the plan. I don't know. Each individual is probably different. Than when I've gone down to the BLM protests here for George Floyd at the White House, what I've found is that there are folks of both types. There are folks who are just genuinely there because they think they agree with the sentence Black Lives Matter, and they want to make sure that their voices are heard, that Black lives do matter in this country, right? But there are some who are there for the organization BLM, and that organization at the upper levels and with its affiliates, with the Antifa, the Anti-Racist Action, all the folks who are posting refusefascism.org, folks that are making the Trump Pence out now orange t-shirts with the black lettering. You've seen the signs. These folks are not your friends. And so what's unfortunately happened is this perennial problem, this problem that doesn't go away. We continue to have problems in our police departments. We continue to have good things in our police departments. We continue to have problems in our communities with shooting and violence and gun crime. We continue to have change happening. People's, getting involved, starting programs, mentorships, etc. Good things and bad things are happening at all times, right? But what do we hear about? Bad things, bad things, bad things. And when it gets to an election year, we hear bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things from these exact organizations. Organizations like BLM, unfortunately, are now funneling money into the Democrat Party. So they're raising money for Act Blue, which all goes to Democrat candidates. Now, these are the same Democrat candidates like Kamala Harris, who literally herself personally is responsible for putting many black men in jail merely for smoking weed when she herself admitted to smoking weed. The hypocrisy is mind-numbing. It's insulting. Frankly, if I was a black person this year, the Democrats trying to get me to vote for Joe Biden and freaking Kamala Harris, are you kidding me? I'd be personally slapped in the face. It's a slap in the face to this ticket, Harris and Biden, a slap in the face. And here's what's worse. I want to pull up that comment in a second, Virginia, so don't lose it. Here's what's worse. Okay? On top of that, on top of giving you Joe Biden, part of the crime bill, part of that whole initiative under Clinton, black people are predators, all this crap that came out of the Clintons and the left, the Democrats during that era, all this junk, super predators, all this crap we used to talk about, right? All that. On top of that, you had Kamala, Little Miss, oh yeah, haha, I put pot smokers in jail, but I smoke pot. Little Miss, don't even get me started at the corruption and the criminality and the number of people's lives she ruined and put into jail. And she is a bad cop. You literally are fighting. You're screaming, we want to get rid of bad cops, but one of them is your vice presidential candidate. Right? Eddie, this is a total good question. Biden cannot debate Trump. How can he debate world dictators? 100% agree. 100% agree. So here's what we have, okay? We have this hate being built up by the need of the Democrats to create anger and division. Because in reality, when you talk to folks in my neighborhood, all right, over here in Anacostia, all right, in Ward 8, when we talk to folks in our neighborhood, the folks in my neighborhood are just, I want to inform you guys of this, okay? It's important to understand. My neighborhood, historic, Anacostia, very black neighborhood, historically black. In fact, the Frederick Douglass house is a block and a half from my house. This is the historically first black neighborhood in the capital. It's all of my neighbors are black except for me. There's like 12 of us, white people in the whole like 5-mile radius or something. I don't know. Anyway, not a lot of white people. I live near a lot of black people, okay, in the black community. And what I'm telling you is that they are just as upset when the 2 girls got shot because of a gang beef up here just on Alabama and First as they are when Deon K got shot by the police officer when he was reportedly brandishing a weapon and running away from police. So the narrative that BLM is putting out that the only black lives that matter are the ones with police officers is not fitting here with the feeling that black lives actually matter. And we should be upset when 2 girls get shot because of a gang situation. And we should also get upset when a young man gets shot by police officers. And whether or not you believe the police officer did his job and acted according to a protocol and was appropriate. Whether or not you believe that, you still want that kid not to have been in a life, okay, that led to having a gun, being on the street, in criminal activity. We want to fix that, okay? We want to fix the world that creates 18-year-olds that have guns and point them at police. That's a problem too. You know, we need to engage that. And the community has engaged that. But see, here's the thing. Less so perhaps in LA, less so in a lot of other places. And here's the thing that's exact, Eddie, what we're talking, Eddie says, did you see the police in Compton shot in the head? And you can read what he says there. This is why you have this anger, because they're creating the anger at police. Exactly. Just because they're a cop. The anger is being caused because instead of focusing on the idea that Black Lives Matter in every situation, and by giving aid and comfort and understanding to the black community, yep, I'm going to put this up because I think it's only fair, black community, all right, we have to start recognizing what the narrative is actually doing. The leadership of BLM is actually doing, what the intention of this constantly telling you about some cop that shot some kid, constantly telling, when we know people get shot every other day, or people get shot all the time, things happen, but why do we keep hearing the same narrative, and those narratives that go national over and over and over? You see what I'm saying? We have these protests being, in fact, even here in Anacostia, I'm going to tell you from personal experience, watching the live feeds, watching some of the people who were there at the protest locally for Dion K, there was a little bit of scuffle because of the fact that outsiders had come and were trying to be very agitant towards the police in the protest. Folks were there to issue their grief. I understand. The community often comes out when someone has been shot by police and expresses their grief and frustration. But there were agitators there that made it more heated, who tried to make it more aggressive. And folks are actually seeing that more. Folks are actually seeing that more and more. And they're seeing that reality. They're seeing exactly what Eddie is saying. If BLM cared about Black lives, they would be in Chicago stopping Black on Black crime. And Eddie, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Black folks are starting to see that more and more. So what we're seeing now in the LA situation with these two officers, that's been very disturbing to a great number of people. And I understand why people are disturbed by it, because it is disgusting and disturbing. We have seen BLM and Antifa protesters out in front of the hospital in LA, in California, where these officers are being treated for these gunshot wounds they achieved from an ambush, merely because they were cops, hunted because they were cops. Folks sitting outside, hope we wish you die. Look, you're all dying. Look at you all dying off one by one, mocking the police officers, doing exactly what Nick is saying right here. They are trying to demoralize the police. They are trying to make the police want to quit, be fed up, to be hurt, angry, just not take it anymore. Now, two things are happening because of that. And I think it's important to recognize two things. One, that level of hatred is beyond most people's ability to stomach. It is actually turning more people away from them by supporting that. Yeah, exactly this, including Black folks. Eddie, I'm going to put this up because a lot of Black folks are starting to realize this more and more. It is mostly white teenage punks, 100%. Antifa has totally infiltrated that group and made it part of their own. So it's unfortunately. So we're seeing folks be really disgusted by this. Most people do not want to wish cops who were just doing their job, who got ambushed, just got shot for no reason, die. Most people, most American citizens do not hate cops and want them all dead. They don't. Radicals do, communists do, and they're making themselves much more evident by this behavior. So it's breaking. So in part, I feel it's important, keep sharing these stories, keep letting people know about this information that the media is actually suppressing. As I said, I had to look for it on purpose. There was no new information about these officers being shot. I had to literally search for it on purpose to find out about these officers being shot. So keep sharing those stories. Keep sharing those articles. It's so important that we continue to show their narrative for what they really are. Show the narrative of them protesting and saying the horrible things they do, because these things, this body of information makes it much more possible for other individuals to see it, it starts to get into the collective conscious, it starts to get into the public lexicon, if you will. So sharing those stories is going to be very important. I want everyone to make sure we continue to share the real information. Don't freak yourself out. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't spam everybody. Sometimes reading it's too much. It can be very frustrating. But indeed, share. Number two thing we need to do that's so important. We need to continue to provide a counter message to our law enforcement. I'm going to repeat that. We need to continue to provide a counter message to our law enforcement. So with all this heat, all this anger, all this negativity that they are getting, okay, we need We need to support our police. Take time out of your day. Call the local police precinct. Just say thank you. I appreciate you guys doing your job. I'm just calling to say thanks. Show up. If you're driving by the cop shop, as we call it, pop in and say, hey, I don't have any problems. There's no crime going on. I just wanted to thank you guys. If there's a way to buy some donuts or buy some hot dogs or buy a pizza or contribute in some way to specifically supporting individual police officers, do it. But just if no other thing, if we do nothing else, if you see a police officer in public, you see a police officer anywhere in public, take the time to thank them. If nothing else, say thank you. I appreciate you doing your job. I appreciate you keeping us safe while we sleep at night, knowing that you guys run into danger, take on the bad guys. Thank them. Because the opposite is happening. They're being insulted. They're being told horrible things. And, when you're a little kid, we all know this about children, and none of us would ever support doing this to children because obviously you don't tell children horrible things about themselves. But if you do, the children remember that, it starts to become their mantra, and then they start telling themselves horrible things about themselves. Well, adults are the same. We're not really all that much different as adults. So the reality of the situation becomes that when these cops keep hearing this negativity over and over and over again, it wears on the soul. And that one compliment that, hey, I appreciate you guys so much. I love you. I love what you're doing. I thank you. Fist bump, whatever it is. However you express your gratitude, letting them know that you deeply appreciate their gratitude. You pray for them every single night. So important. So important. I want to congratulate my friend Melissa Roby. As you know from the Walkaway movement, she's been doing some amazing stuff. I'm very proud of her. I've had a chance to be at a couple of her events now, so I'm very proud of the work that she's doing with the We Back Blue movement that she is pushing out. She was able to host a rally just this last week with Officer David Dorn, his wife Sheila. I believe her first name is Sheila Dorn. Very touched, very moving. As you know, David Dorn was a black police officer who was shot and killed during this time. And certainly he's one of the names that I remember and continue to, when they say his name, I say David Dorn, because I want people to remember that we are losing our law enforcement officials and that those Black Lives Matter as well. Particularly, if you're going to be in a group of people who are screaming at different Black lives. All right, well, I appreciate it. Look, I agree. Breonna Taylor's life mattered, even though she had a drug dealer boyfriend who was living in her house and storing all his drugs in her house and had a firearm. And when the cops came and showed up, he fired at the police and they fired back, killing Breonna Taylor. They knocked and she said no, and then they fired. Okay. Even though I agree her life still mattered. Okay. I agree your life still mattered. Even though Michael Brown had robbed a liquor store earlier in the day, and they tried to stop, the police attempted to stop him. He turned and tried to attack the officer, tried to grab the officer's gun, was attempting to wrestle the officer's gun away from him in his vehicle, endangering the officer. I agree his life mattered, okay? Even though these are the situations, I agree each of these lives mattered. Even if they made a bad choice and they criminalized their lives and they ruined their own lives. I'm not saying they ruined their lives. I'm not saying bad people aren't bad. But it mattered. Their life mattered at some point. And I think that's the appropriate Christian response. People say, well, how can you say that? How can you say someone's life mattered who's a criminal, who's a rapist, who's a drug dealer, who's killed people? How can you say their life matters? Well, because Jesus tells me to say that. Because Jesus taught me that every life mattered and that every life, while still living, has an opportunity for redemption, for reform, for repentance, and Paul The reason we know about Jesus, Paul, was once Saul, and he murdered Christians on the road to Damascus. He murdered Christians and was found came upon by a blinding light on the road to Damascus that obviously changed his whole outlook. So, even though I agree all those lives, but I also agree that that David Dorn's life matters. I agree that these two girls who got shot because their boyfriend, they were in some sort of, gang beef situation. Their life mattered. Every life matters. Life. It's just as simple as that. And we need to start acting like that. And we can act like that. We can actually do a lot to damage what they're saying, what they're talking about, their hatred, their anger, the division. That's what Helter Skelter is all about. It's a whole idea. It's a whole concept of dividing us by race, dividing us and making us fear one another. And if we fear one another, yes. Listen. Chris says, I belong to a group in Portland just set out to bolster the police. I post every story I find that's uplifting to them. Awesome. This is what we're going to need to keep doing, you guys. We need to keep supporting our police officers. We need to keep getting the true stories out and the real information. We need to continue to be that warmth and light. Everyone, I'm going to give you a mission for this week. Find somebody who you might not have normally got along with, somebody you might have disagreed with, maybe somebody in public, maybe you're out at the grocery store and you see somebody who's like, oh, I bet they voted for Hillary. Find someone you would normally disagree with. Boom. Okay. Have a nice word with them. You don't have to engage the politics. I'm not telling you to go find a liberal and be like, you're a liberal. I need to have a nice word with you. That's not going to work. I'm saying you see somebody you might be a little bit uncomfortable with. You're like, oh, I bet they look like a Biden voter. They look like Trump isn't their president. Say, hi, have a nice day. Give them a wave. Be nice for a second. Try it. We have to break it. We have to break the hate. They want us to hate each other. They are encouraging their leftists to do mean things to us, so we hate them, so we divide the country more. I'm asking you to find love in your heart, at least one opportunity this week. Find someone, somewhere, who you wouldn't normally think you would get along with. Just have even a nice, hey, isn't the weather beautiful? Yes, it is. Have a positive experience. Have a positive experience with somebody you would disagree with this week. And that's what I'm asking you to do. We're going to start breaking down that hatred, breaking down that division, breaking down the anger. Support your minimum law enforcement. Keep talking to your neighbors. Keep getting the vote out. Remember, I need you to get yourself to the poll plus 5, now 10. 10 friends. Talk to your neighbors. Make sure everybody's registered. Make sure, see if anybody needs a ride. Do it. Hey, Karen, this is actually a great suggestion. Here, look for someone wearing a mask along in their car. Biden supporters. Give somebody who's wearing a mask a compliment about something totally else. I did this weekend, actually. It was kind of fun. So this girl, she had these really sparkly eye makeup on. I was like, oh, girl, I like your sparkly eye makeup. She's like, oh, thank you. But they're like, oh, thank you. I'm like, I bet you have a really great smile right now. You just can't see because you got this mask on. But see, little crumbs of red. Okay, we don't need to swallow the whole dang red pill. Crumb by crumb, you guys. Be warm, be friendly, be loving. Find somebody you disagree with and connect with them on a human level. We need to be humans again. We need to be humans again. We need to be humans again. The only way we're going to get people to take off the mask, stop burning down each other's houses, stop hating police, stop thinking the country's evil, and go back to loving America and loving each other and making America great again. The only way we're going to do that is, 1, we reelect Donald J. Trump. 2, we find the humanity in this country again. So I send you forth to find that humanity, my friends. And that is our show for today. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I will be on the Exceptional Conservative Network tomorrow. You can find that the new link, Chris, I'm going to make it really easy for you. The new link is www, obviously, TECNTV.com. TECNTV.com. All one letters. TECNTV.com. That is where I will be tomorrow night doing my show Life, Liberty, and Talk. We're going to be talking about some really interesting things. I just want you to know, I'm spending a lot of time talking to folks in my neighborhood here in Anacostia, really keeping my finger on the pulse of what's happening. And you'd be surprised. The left is not as effective as you think they are, my friend. Nick, I'm going to leave this on as we go out. 100% love your neighbor as yourself. It's the golden rule. Jesus was right about it. And frankly, it's just a fun way to live. You're going to enjoy life a lot more loving your neighbor than hating him. I can promise you that. All right. Until next time, you guys, thank you for tuning in. This is your girl, Suzzanne Monk, as always. Trump it out. See you tomorrow, y'all.